Does your quartz or granite countertop freeze you out? There are ready-made heat pads available, but to do the area I wanted to do would cost about $1,000. Here's what I did to warm up our counter for about $50. I looked into a lot of different heat sources, and I found that the electric heat that they put under tile floors is the most compatible with the stone countertops. This is the one that I found online that best worked for my situation. It only cost about $25. This heat cord also comes with a thermostat controller, which I'll talk about a little bit more later. You'll also need an external temperature sensor to connect to the thermostat. This is the unit I found for about $8. I used foil duct joint sealing tape to install the heat cables under the counter. You'll need a 2-gang old work junction box and a 2-gang blank cover plate, as well as a piece of Romex to connect to your nearest source of 120 volt power. From this outlet over the counter, I was able to feed the Romex down between the studs and cut in the old work box under the counter. Here's a shot under the countertop showing the heat cables installed with the foil tape. Our countertop is 1 inch thick all the way through, front to back and side to side. Some countertops have a wood substrate with build-up edges, and they're only, I guess, 1/2 inch thick. I don't know if this heat system will work with those. As I said before, this heat cable kit comes with a thermostat. It has some pros and cons. The best thing is that it's essentially free. If you buy a remote temperature sensor to connect to it, this thermostat will control the temperature of your countertop very well. It only shows centigrade temperatures, but you don't really need a temperature readout. You just feel the countertop, and if it's cold, you raise the temperature, and if it's too warm, you lower the temperature. It doesn't matter if it's centigrade or Fahrenheit, it's just how it feels. The thermostat is not programmable like some others that have the 7-day, 24-hour programmable feature. If you want something like that, you need to spend about $100 to $200. The other negative on this thermostat is that the instructions are terrible. They're a poor translation, but I did figure it out, and I'll give some tips on what I came up with. Here are the basics of the setup and operation. Looking at the controller on the front left bottom are the buttons. The first left one is the on-off. It's just push once it's on, push once it's off. The screen that you see now indicates off. When the unit is on, you'll see the sunshine symbol above the numbers. When the unit is on and actively heating, you'll see the cycling symbol below the numbers. The next button to the right has an M on it, which is a dual function button. It's for a timer or a programming mode. Press it for a few seconds and it'll go into timer, and it'll say either timer on or timer off, and then it'll show some numbers, and that's the number of hours to on or off depending on which mode it's in. Then you use the up and down buttons to change the numbers, the number of hours. To enter the programming mode, first shut the unit off. After pressing and holding the M button for about 4 to 5 seconds, the first mode in the programming will come up. It will show some numbers, either positive or negative. This is the calibration mode, and it doesn't really seem to have much use in this operation for the countertop. Next, press the up button or down button to move to the next programming mode, which should be for the external temperature sensor. There'll be 3 different options. The first is for the built-in temperature sensor which senses the room temperature. That won't help for the countertop. The next option is the external temperature sensor. This is what you want to select. Selection is done by just waiting a few seconds and it selects automatically. The next option is for the dual mode. I believe you can set that one up if you like, but it doesn't seem to have any beneficial function. The next stage in programming is a low temperature protection. Default is off and doesn't really seem to have much use for countertop heating. Press the arrow button again to go into the high temperature protection setting. 35 degrees is the minimum setting allowed, and that's equal to about 95 degrees. 43 degrees is equal to about 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Set it somewhere in there and then just either press the power button to turn it back on or let it sit for a minute and it automatically sets to your selection. There is one more setting. It's the restarts the memory at power off, so I would leave that function set to off. The thermostat has two pieces: the display unit, which is larger, and the controller mechanism, which is smaller. You will connect the two together. Before connecting the two units, place the smaller controller section centered on the blank 2-gang blank cover plate and trace the outline of the controller. Then cut out the hole so that the controller fits through it snugly. You can now screw the controller to the cover plate. Then connect the wires to the controller, push the wires back into the junction box and install the cover plate on the junction box. Then you can connect the display to the controller. There are some important things to be aware of. These heat cables are made to cover a specific area. You can't trim or cut the cable. You just have to get one as close to the area that you need to heat, and you can adjust the spacing on the cables as you install it. For example, you see that the one I purchased is for 10 square feet. It's 35.3 lineal feet. Standard installation practice for these is to have the parallel loops of the cable about 3.5 inches apart. I compensated a little to make mine cover a smaller area by installing them 2.25 inches apart roughly. 2 inches apart is the absolute minimum or maximum, I guess, as close as you can go. The Schluter company makes all kinds of tile accessories, and they sell similar tile floor heat systems like this. I'd recommend you look on their website to see some of their instructions. They say that you should not install the heat cable under any items on the floor like cabinets. My assumption for the reason for this is that the floor under cabinets doesn't dissipate the heat as quickly as the exposed areas, and it might cause heat expansion and cracking under the cabinets or under items on the floor. I don't think it's because of any fire danger. The cables only produce a little over 100 degrees. Nonetheless, I still kept my cables 2 inches from my cabinets and 1 inch from the edges. Before installing the cables under the countertop, I took a magic marker and marked the 2-inch limit along the cabinets, and I also marked where the parallel loops would run about 2.25 inches apart so that I could see where to run the cables and where not to run them. With using the foil tape, I found that tearing the tape leaves an irregular edge, which makes it easier to get hold of the backer and peel it. I'm sorry I didn't make a video as I put this together. I was just doing it as an experiment. And after it worked out, I thought I'd share the information. Hope this is helpful.